Forget everything you know about painting mountains, because when I tried this reverse technique a long time ago on a large canvas, the results shocked me. Now watch as I paint this New Zealand inspired landscape and watch how it transforms using this unconventional method that I'm about to show you. And it all starts in the blocking in stage, so I'll explain this in just a moment. But to begin with, what I'm doing here is I'm sketching out my composition on a 20 by 24 inch linen canvas. I'm using oil paint here, a brand called Blue Ridge Oils, and I'm sketching out my composition using burnt sienna mixed with a little bit of oleo gel. And the oleo gel is a non-toxic medium that I'm going to be using to help improve the flow of my paint. This painting is inspired by an area called Glenorchy in southern New Zealand, and I've been painting here many times, especially painting outdoors. In fact, I've even made a couple of YouTube videos of me painting in this area. It's a truly magical place. Now, as you can see, I've got one of my plein air paintings next to me, which is helping with the overall colour, because I did some prior planning for this painting, including pencil sketches and a colour study. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, what was the technique or the thing that I did that really transformed my paintings? Well, it's painting my dark values first, and I discovered this through plein air painting. It makes it easier to paint the dark values first when you're painting outdoors because the light's always changing. So here I've started off by painting my darkest values, as we'll find our darkest darks and our lightest lights in the foreground. Value refers to how light or dark a subject is. Now, as landforms recede, the darks aren't as dark and the lights aren't as light, and this is because the tonal range narrows. So what I'm doing here is I'm using varying combinations of ultramarine blue with burnt sienna to create a really dark tone, and then I also mix in a little bit of alizarin crimson and titanium white. So the titanium white is helping with the reflected light in the bank along the river here, and also I'm just painting some of these dark shadows. Now, as we move into the distance, those shadows are going to be getting lighter. So why paint all your darks and shadows first? Well, by doing this, it sets out a whole tonal framework in the painting, and then it makes it easier to paint the areas in light, because you'll be able to gauge the tonality of the colours that you're using and the saturation when you paint it next to the dark values. There are many artists that will start by painting the sky first and then work their way forward, and there's nothing wrong with doing this, but the problem that can happen if you do this method is that your darks can end up becoming too dark by the time you're painting the midground, and then you may not have anywhere to go in terms of tonal value when you come to paint your darks or your lights in the foreground. So that can be a problem. So by starting off with the darks first, i.e. the darkest darks, then we can then work our way back and get the correct tonal value of these shadows. So it means we can start to have a good framework to make the mountains recede into the distance, and it works really well with mountains. Often shadows in the distance, especially in mountain landscapes, can have a blue cast to them. So again, I've still carried on using a mix of ultramarine blue with burnt sienna, a little titanium white and a little alizarin crimson. Now, I've also included the clouds in this, even though the clouds are quite light in value. Sky and clouds are some of the lightest values in the landscape. But again, I include this in my shadows, and I've used a similar colour. Now, here's another painting hack which I used, especially for my larger paintings. And it's use big brushes. I try and use the biggest brushes that I can get away with. And I've had many of my students say to me that they really struggle with being over detailed in their paintings, and they just want to loosen up but still have that realistic feel to it. Well, this is the way to do it. It starts off in the block-in stage, and we're not worrying about detail here at all, so we can use the biggest brushes that we can get away with. For example, here I'm using number 10 flat brushes. I could probably go even bigger with my brushes if I had some, but the biggest brushes I've got are number 10 bristle flats. So as you can see, by this point in the painting, I've got my main areas of darks down, and now it's making it much easier to paint the areas of the mountains that are in light. Now, this is some seriously rugged landscape here in New Zealand, and there's lots of different colours in the mountains itself, and they're quite difficult to capture. There's a combination of low chroma colours coming from some of the plants that are growing there, especially tussock grass, which is this kind of straw coloured grass. So for the mountain in the background there, I used a mix of mainly yellow ochre with some alizarin crimson, some titanium white and a little ultramarine blue. I have to be really careful that the colour's not too saturated, otherwise it's going to jump forward in the painting. However, another thing that I do in my paintings is I keep my tones and values just a little bit darker to start with, because then I've got plenty of room to add lighter layers of paint as I work through the painting. And I'll be saving my lightest values until the end of the painting, and this will help to make the whole thing pop and just adds a lot more depth into the painting overall. So even painting an artwork like this that's relatively big, at least for me anyway, I don't have that much room to do big paintings in my studio, but I'm trying to cover ground quickly, again, which is why I'm using these large brushes. Now here I'm painting the pine tree, or one of the pine trees in the painting, and I'm going for a reasonably dark green here, but they're still light enough that it shows that it's in full sunlight. It's also reasonably saturated, although pine trees tend to have a lower chroma colour in their foliage. But I used a mix of yellow ochre with a little bit of cadmium yellow medium, some ultramarine blue and titanium white, and then I also mixed in a little bit of burnt sienna and just a small amount of phthalo green. It's really important to make sure that the colour's not too saturated. And also, for those of you that are really struggling with greens, it's important to have a colour opposite in your green. So this is red, so a colour that contains red. It could be a cadmium red light, which I generally reserve for the foreground of a painting, but you could also use alizarin crimson or burnt sienna, and this will just help to knock the saturation out of the green and helps your greens to look more organic and natural. Now here's another tip for mixing greens. When you look at greens in the landscape, the saturation of the green tends to drop out quite quickly, which means the distant greens, they're not intense in colour like they would be in the foreground. And in fact, distant greens are often very low in chroma and barely look green at all, and even our eyes can trick us. So this is really important so that our greens recede into the distance. If I were to use a green that's as saturated as that willow tree or those pine trees in the distance, then there wouldn't be any depth. It would just bring the distant mountain forward. So it's really important that we desaturate our colours as we work into the distance. Now when painting an artwork like this, as I said, I'm trying to use the biggest brushes possible so that I can cover ground quickly. I get the blocking in stage done as quickly as possible. I painted the sky using a mix of ultramarine blue with a little cobalt teal and titanium white, and here I'm now working on the foreground, which is the banks of the river where there's a lot of rocks and stones. And I'm also painting some of these submerged stones that's beneath the water, and the water's relatively calm here. So what I'm doing is I'm just starting off with the shadows of the stones within the water, which are a little bit lighter than when they're above the water. Now at this point the blocking in stage was complete and the painting was dry. So what I was starting to do here is, this is the process called modelling, and where I start to add details, and I'm refining various zones in the painting to start bringing out the details altogether. Now I consider myself a realism painter, but not necessarily a detail painter, so I'm not going to be overly detailed with this painting. But the beauty of starting off with really loose brushwork is once it's dry you can go as loose or as detailed as you like. And it will still have vibrancy, life and vitality in the painting because of that loose brushwork underneath. Now I hope you're enjoying this video so far and finding it helpful. And if you're struggling with your landscape paintings, perhaps you're struggling with your compositions, just being able to create depth and distance in your paintings, or just really struggling with the colour mixing, well, what you need is a process to work towards. This really helped me with my paintings, having a set methodology to create my paintings from start to finish. And I detail my methodology in my free landscape painting blueprint. It details my painting process from start to finish, and there's loads of tips on painting landscapes, including a full painting demonstration at the end. Now, if you'd like to get my landscape painting blueprint, as I say, I'm giving it away totally for free. Just click the link below and I'll send it over to you. Now back to my painting, and at this point I was well into the modelling part of it and building up the details. So adding more details to the side of the mountain here, these exposed rock faces. And all the time that I'm painting, I'm thinking more in terms of value rather than mixing colours. Now, of course, colour mixing is important, but it's really the values that do all the heavy lifting in the painting. In fact, I heard this saying recently that values do all the heavy lifting whilst the colours get all the glory. And I think that's so true. But you can see it now already in the painting, even though I haven't finished it yet, that I'm using my most saturated colours in the foreground along with my darkest and lightest values. And as you can see in the background, my darks aren't as dark and my lights aren't as light, and you can see that the mountain looks like it's in the distance. And this is the effect that we want in our paintings. So by now I'm just adding more details and building up those lighter value colours, and that's really going to add to the depth of the painting and make it look more detailed and realistic, even though I wasn't going too crazy with the detail. When it came to painting things like these rocks here, there's a lot of them, so I was using a synthetic flat brush that's going to have a more defined edge. So these are perfect for painting lots of rocks. Also, I was using them for the snow highlights in the top of this mountain. I absolutely love painting mountains. I also think they're an excellent subject to paint if you're learning to paint, because you really get a full range of tonal values and it will help you to understand how it works in the landscape. And the mountains here in New Zealand where I live are just so beautiful. In fact, I can't describe it in words, so I feel compelled to capture this on canvas, which is one of the reasons I'm a landscape painter. There's so much beauty in the world and I just want to capture it on canvas, which is why I'm inspired to paint landscapes like these. Now, as we wrap up this video, I'd just like to let you know that I do have prints available of this painting. Just click the link below. Now, obviously there was a lot of time and work that went into this painting and you're only seeing a small snippet of it, but I hope it gives you an idea of how a painting like this can come together. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm saving my last final details here towards the end, so my brushes are a lot smaller. I'm using number 3 synthetic flat brushes, but I've also saved my lightest values until the end, as I said, which are in the rocks here, and this helps to communicate the bright sunlight. And as I said, I also painted the snow highlights as well. This is where also some of the lightest values are in the whole scene. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to paint mountains, and if you'd like to learn more about painting mountains, check out this video here. Happy painting, and I'll see you in the next video.